11 minutes in past 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. This is Come. Let's talk with me, Kassim Kayira. We are live on 75W Radio. We are live on Ummah Connected. We are live on Facebook. That is via 75wradio.com. On Facebook. So facebook.com/75W Radio. Or we are on Ummah Connected on YouTube and on Zoom, where you've just joined us. The program, we are looking at the clash of dreams. How comes parties, people who leave the African continent, who leave their countries of origin on the continent, leave with a dream to go and look for greener pastures, but with the express purpose? It's rare. It's not impossible, but it's rare to find people who leave to go abroad and their express intention is just to stay there for good. There are those, of course, who feel like there is nothing left back home. But many go because they know the beauty that is back home. And all they need is a big push, a bit of a nice push that can allow them to get started in doing business, in either farming, in either running commercial ventures, in business in town, or elsewhere. And all they need is that little push, which abroad or overseas does provide. Husband sometimes leaves fast, or wife goes fast, or they manage to move together. But the intention is, once we get there, we are going to work hard, 3 years, 4 years. In the 5th year, we should be packing up our bags and coming back home to live the comfortable life, because we'd have had a bit of money that allows us now to run our lifestyle, our lives, and our businesses without a hold. 2 years down the road, or 3 years down the road, once the conversation of going back home starts coming up, one of the two couples starts becoming hesitant. Let's just allow you to watch this video to get us deep into the conversation tonight. Why does it become difficult for people to go back home? Isma, you can play the video, please, so that we allow people to watch that and therefore lead us nicely into the conversation. Welcome to everyone who has just joined us. The program is Come. Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we're just going to play you a video that introduces us into the idea of going back home. Isma, when you're ready, I think when I see it on the screen, I'll just keep quiet in the meantime. All right, I think you are ready.
So hi guys, Saseni, Mambo, it's long since I said that intro. I hope you guys are doing fine, and if you're seeing this face for the first time, guys, my name is Ruth Kim. I'm Kenyan, currently living here in Germany since 2010, guys. 10 years or even almost 11 years, guys. I've been living here in Germany, and on my channel I share my own experiences as a foreigner living here in Germany. I share good information that I know, and I'm sure if I share it out there, it's going to help someone else. And sometimes I even do haul videos. I do anything that I feel it's worth posting. So guys, today on this video, I'm going to tell you guys one of the biggest or the main reason most people in diaspora, including myself, are not going back to Africa. You know, Wadema is out there preaching how all blacks should go back to their motherland. And today in this video, I'm going to share the main reason why we are not going back to Africa. So many people out there are going to say they are not going to back to Africa because of poor transportation, poor government, poor health care, poor infrastructure, anything, poor. The only thing we are preaching is how Africa is poor in everything, you know. And the moment you tell a German how poor your
These These are those rhombohedron crystals in your pineal gland. When those crystals become electrically activated, all of a sudden they start calling energy back to them, and they begin to build their own electromagnetic field.
Your country is, they're going to feel like you need to be here. You are going to do anything to be here. And this is how we end up being discriminated by these people, because the only thing we share to them is how poor our continent is. Anyway, that's actually not even the reason why most of us are not going back home. The main reason is because we don't have anything to go back to. We don't have anything. Of course, we have family members, they are back there, and we have rich family members as well. We have, our families are doing well. So if my brother is rich in Africa, that's nothing for me. That's not my money. If my mother is rich in Africa, that's not mine as well. The main reason we move from Africa, or we move from Kenya to come here abroad, is to look for greener pastures, guys. Is to look for money. Besha, let me say, it's to look for money. And this is the biggest mistake that we do. The moment we land here and we see whatever we expected, because when you're back in Africa, the expectations that you're having there about life abroad is, you think you're going to come here and you're going to become instant millionaire. This is not how it works. In Germany, you have to work as twice or as thrice or 5 times harder as you have to work in Africa to get that money. You don't get anything for free. The good thing about Germany is anybody can get a job. Jobs are everywhere. Jobs are everywhere. It's very easy to make money. Making money is not an issue in Germany. The biggest issue and the main problem that we have is we lack financial knowledge. Let me go back to something, guys. When I said most of us don't go back home because we don't have anything to go back to, I meant we have not invested back in Africa. We have not done anything for ourselves back home, something that's going to sustain us when we go back home, because we all know getting a job is not as easy as you guys know it. It's not so easy to get a job back home. God has given you an opportunity to come to Europe, to go to the US, to go wherever you guys are. So invest back home, because when you have enough back at home, you have enough money, it's going to take you to the best hospitals. You can have a good car. You don't have to drive with a matatu to go facing those poor things that we are preaching. You can be able to sustain yourself with that money, but that's what we don't have. And the main reason why we don't have all this, we have not invested back in Africa, is because the biggest mistake that most of us do when we come here, we scatter our investment. It's not that we don't invest, but instead of taking time, like 5 years, we say, these 5 years I'm going to invest on myself, so that one day my family or my friends or my neighbors are going to benefit from me. What we do, guys, is we decide to help everyone. You decide to help your family, you decide to help your cousins, you decide to help your neighbors, and even your friends. So you scatter everything else everywhere. You are the good Samaritan. You want to look good, and after 10 years, my dear, you're still here in Europe and you don't have anything to show. Because of what? Because you don't have anything. You don't have anything. And then those people who you decided to help out there, they don't have anything as well, because they didn't use that money you sent to them wisely. Because
don't use bullet points in a presentation. Look, if you're responsible for driving new sales into a business you own or that you work for, you're probably doing that through a presentation, but do not,
because it was not their sweat. So at the end of it all, you have nothing and they have nothing. Can you imagine, guys, if you do it like this? You say, I'm going to take time and I'm going to invest on myself. I was telling my mom the other day, can you imagine if I decided to invest on myself, you know, to gain financial knowledge, to invest back in Africa and invest here in Europe, save enough money, you know, everybody could be having something. Let's say I'm a tree bearing fruits. I could be sagging because of the heaviness of the fruits that I'm having. And everybody, my family members, my neighbors, my friends could be having something to pluck down from my tree. But there's nothing to pluck. I don't have anything because I invested without knowledge. And that's why I'm saying the main thing that we lack here in Germany is financial knowledge. I know most of my viewers watch Wodemaya. Wodemaya is a Ghanaian YouTuber. If you've seen most of his videos, those people who have gone back to Africa are investors. Guys, they are investors. You can't just pack your luggage like this and go back to Africa. They are investors. They are people who have built apartments, getting money from real estate. They are people who have done big things. So, and when they pack their luggage and put them on their back and say, I'm going back to Africa, they know what they're going back to. What do we have? Nothing. So stop blaming the government, blaming poor transportation, blaming, and that's why you spend your 20 years. If you came here when you were 20, that place you're saying poor, that's where you spent all those years. So guys, now you know the main reason we are not coming back. It's not because of Africa is poor. It's because we have not invested enough to come back home. And that's why we need to educate ourselves. Corona has changed me a lot. Guys, you all know that guys, you all know that I encourage young people to come to Germany. I talk about au pair. I talk how you can come as a volunteer. I talk how you can come as a student. You can come through marriage and on. And one thing that someone didn't tell me is when I come here, how I'm going to build myself, to develop myself. Nobody talked to me about that. And that's why currently I'm working on my personal development. Because for you to be able to invest, to do all those things, you have to work on your personal development. And one thing that I've been currently doing is reading a lot of books, investing in books, investing in knowledge, getting to know something new. There's nothing as good as that. Knowing something new that is going to help you out, and you're going to gain knowledge, and you're going to better yourself in the future. Finding your strength, developing it so that your weakness is going to disappear. Corona, whatever it has done in my head, I wish I knew this like 10 years ago, but it's never too late. It's never too late to start now. And that's why in this channel, there are going to be some changes. We are going to talk more of how you can start your own business here in Germany. Mambo ya kuandikwa. Who said life is all about being employed? We can start our own business. You can make yourself your own boss. These are the things that I want to add in this channel. As much as I encourage you to come here, after coming here, I want us to learn together how to invest back in Africa, how to invest here in Germany, how to start a business here in Germany. So like I said, you're going to see how to start a business in this channel. You're going to start a content about self-development, how to save money, how to budget money, how to buy assets here in Germany, how to invest here in Germany and back at home. Of course, I don't have all that knowledge myself. I'm still educating myself, and I'm going to be looking for people who are in it, who are good experts in those things, and I'll be inviting them in my channel, and we are going to be doing that together. We have to change, guys. We have to change, because we don't want to die here, and we don't want to go and be a burden to our family members. Okay, I don't want this video to be so long. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and you agree with me about the content, and you agree with me about the content that we will be making, we need to have a change.
Thank you so much.
We need
my
to change
from Kenya. Thank you so much. That was, if you've just joined us, please, you are in the right place. Don't worry that you are lost. Program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we thought we should just open our conversation just looking at the reasons that make people fear to go back home. Well, the program, like we say today, we are going to be looking at a very important perspective, actually two elements in one. The first one is about going back home. But most importantly, the clash, the reasons that impede our ability to go back home. Like I said at the start, for those who have just joined us and missed, when many couples leave home, you leave home with the hope of saying, we are going abroad with the target period of time. You're saying we are giving ourselves 3, 4, 5 years. We will raise enough money and then we'll come back to live a comfortable life back home. Have no doubt whatsoever that home is still better. You can be abroad, you'll get the healthcare, you'll get the whatever, but ultimately, home is still better if you have the means to live there. Many people leave, but then once you've gone abroad and you are abroad, you start struggling. There is a clash of these dreams. Husband or wife wants to go back home, but then the other party doesn't want to or doesn't feel ready to want to go back. In a situation like that, probably as you left, you didn't have children or you had children who are much younger. You've arrived abroad, you've started working, you get jobs. As you get jobs, you get children. These children now tie you down and you worry that you can no longer be able to go back home because one, the cost of educating these children is going to be very high. If you're going to put your child in an international school, that is going to be pretty high and therefore inhibitive for your means. Maybe there's something else. Wife has just lived the life of Europe and just feels like no longer belongs to Africa in the sense of, living life, because there's a particular lifestyle that you're so used to that going back would be difficult. Earlier, when I flagged this message, one of our participants tonight just sent a message and I just allow me to read it very quickly to you, and that will get us into the conversation. Haji Katerega, your hand was first up. I saw Rashida coming up and Hajat Sar as well. We'll come and listen to you because you are the people that make this program what it is. You're the experts. It's your experiences. It's your knowledge. Have you tried going back home and then you ran back because you couldn't fit there? Have you managed to get there, but then you realize maybe you still have to leave one leg here, one leg there? Are you able to actually wholly go back? And this is one of those programs where we allow you to speak. Hata Kiswahili would be welcoming it just to allow people to have a say. So someone sends me this message off the back of the trailer that I just sent about tonight's program. Says, nice one. I'm here because it's my second home. It's like having a townhouse and a country home for me. Allah knows Hijrah, or Allah allows Hijrah. And when the Prophet migrated, he never looked back, however much he loved Mecca. Once you settle in a first world country, it becomes so hard to relocate. And among the hindrances is the health care system. You can relocate fine, but you'll always come back for medical checkups and treatments. Family will always bring you back because, of course, you miss them. The way the governments in Europe apply justice will always bring you back. The fairness of the system is so close to the Sharia system. May Allah guide these people. All we need in life is peace and harmony. Hence the word Islam. Where there is peace, Islam thrives. It's evident in England, for example, there is so much to say. Well, I'll definitely hope to hear a lot more about that. Haji Katerega, I come to you first, and then I'll go to Rashida and then Hajati Sarah. Yes, Haji Katerega, if you can unmute yourself, please. I think I've sent you a click to unmute yourself, and I've seen so many new faces here. Welcome very much to the conversation. I hope you will enjoy the program. Haji Katerega, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Where are you based? Where are we speaking to you from?
You're speaking to me from Heathrow. I'm at work.
From Heathrow. So you are in the United Kingdom.
I'm in the United Kingdom here.
Barakallahu
and I'm happy to be in this program, part of this program, which is very good and may help a lot of our children, for example, those who are coming up and who are growing up in this country. Yeah, but my submission here is, we want to make use of this program nicely. We need to know exactly what kind of people are we talking about. Because to me, there are three categories of people. There are those people who have left Africa when they are in looking for real asylum. They have been in politics and things have messed up and they have to run away for their life. They run here with nothing. They arrive here without any expectation and they have left behind all their loved ones. Then there is another group of people who have been doing business. They have business acumen and acumen, but eventually because of policies back home and whatever they have gone through, they have lost their business and they have come here for green pasture. And then there is another group of people also who have been doing very well at home. They are well established and they decide to send their children abroad for education and acquiring more knowledge. They also arrive here and eventually they get stuck here. Now, when we are talking about these three types of people, you find that there's a huge difference in their undertaking. For example, the person who has come with nothing, with no hope, an asylum seeker, and has left everything back home, is going to get papers, start working, and almost everything he'll be acquiring, he'll be selling it back home because he left behind a very big family, which was still his responsibility. So for that person to be able to settle here and make a takeoff, it's going to take him a lot of time. And then for the other person who was a businessman and lost some money and when he came here with the ideas, he is likely to go back home very soon and he's not likely to marry here. He might marry here and get a wife temporarily, but still he will continue with his wife or girlfriend he left behind because he was established, he knows what he was going through, and he has come here to get some backup so that he can be able to go back. If you look at this program by that guy from Ghana, who has been going around Africa showing people who have maybe been able to make some errands in Europe and that. You find that all these people are young. They come here with business enterprises in their head, and they have been working here on a project for some years, not simply because they have acquired some money and they want to go back. No, they start small and they go on building on it. But if you have come here and you have got no family behind, and you just want to you have just got married here, my advice would be to build yourself here so that you can settle down, get mortgage, establish yourself so that by the time you have your children, they are well educated, they are well nourished. Because the aim of all us coming into this country and staying in diaspora is to make our life better for our children and for ourselves. But if you decide to go back prematurely, the children are going to be left without a helper, with nobody to guide them. And back home, it's very difficult now to raise children. Secondly,
Haj Kateriga, I hear you. Very fantastic. Let me just say the idea was about people who have left and probably more, because if you look at the bulk of the people, for example, from countries which don't have war, countries like Uganda, you might have numbers that are political asylum seekers, but most people will be economic migrants, people who have come, who have had ideas, who had businesses and they failed, who had, were working for banks like Greenland Bank, it shuts down under mysterious circumstances. These people who sort of already have ideas, but they come, and that's why, like in our trailer, I was saying, you get husband and wife who board a plane and they say, let's go abroad, let's put together some money, let's work for 2-3 years. Once we've raised enough money, we can come, or either we start investing and then we are able to return back home. So the idea mainly, the political refugees, that's a different thing altogether. They wouldn't really qualify because those are real asylum seekers who need to stay for as long as, well, whatever made them run away is still there. But I was referring more to the bulk of the people who come out to look for something, build it back home. And like you saw, many people are scared of going back because they don't have anything to go back to. You've raised a very important point that I would like to take you on, just to sort of ask you so that we can explore a little bit more on this. The point where you said people who rush to go back home, leaving children, whatever, and going, and when they are not ready, the likelihood of disrupting both family back here and the business investment back home is quite high. Please just try explore a little bit more into that.
Okay, I'll go on through that on that line. Thank you so much for correcting me. Well, if you have been to Africa some time back, for these countries like Kenya, which have got a stable political situation, is different. If you are talking about Rwanda, it's different. But if you are talking about a country like Uganda, Uganda is unpredictable. It's like a sea. If you have to go back to a country like Uganda, you need to be able to toil the politics of the day. If you are going to involve yourself into investing into that country, it's stable, there's no problem. But as long as you don't involve yourself in politics and keep your mouth shut, nobody's going to interfere with you. But if you are going back home with that kind of thinking that, okay, I know everything, because people don't believe that there is pseudo democracy. Yes. What is back home there is pseudo democracy. They will show you that there's democracy, but at the same time they'll tell you shut up. So a lot of people, if you look now on the website, you find that now, for example, now in Uganda, there are lots and thousands of properties being sold. People who had gone back to Africa, to Uganda, and invested in buildings, and now they are selling off. I don't know why. Many people are saying it's because of economical pressure back home here in the diaspora. But there must be something which is now driving people crazy, because I can assure you, every day I'm receiving thousands and thousands of properties being sold. Whereas previously, it was very difficult to even find a property to buy. Single property was very high, land was very scarce, but now everybody is selling. Those who had gone back to Africa and had invested in their buildings, rentals, they're all selling back to come back to Europe. Why are they doing that? They have realized that the policy which is being put now, for example, in Uganda, is impossible for you to make it develop yourself. It's impossible. The taxes are so high. The things have changed so dramatically compared to what used to be in the past. Because previously, we used to have corporations run by the government. Now, corporations are run as oligarchies. I mean, like the Russian way style, whereby
like somebody, yes,
yeah, if they want to build up, for example, a factory for Jews, they will have to. You have to be a political supporter. Then they will invest into you, and then you'll invest. You'll start up this manufacturing plant as if you are an investor, but while it's money given to you by the government, which is very difficult. Unless you are able to toil the politics of that day, you're not going to be able to go back and invest in anything. If you look at fishing at the sea now, at the port, at Lake Victoria, everybody who used to do fishing there, you cannot buy here a boat and take it back home. Even if you want to do anything in business, you have to have an affiliation with the NRM government to be able to do that. But once you have that affiliation, nobody's going to touch you, but still not be very easy for you if you are lived in diaspora for a long time. So
thank you. Yes. What you're suggesting?
What I'm suggesting is that if you are doing well, what is the aim of you doing well or looking at the future? The future is going to be bright if your children are doing well. Invest in your children. That's why the Asians are beating us here. Because when they settle here, for them, they don't look back. They will put money into mortgage, they invest in property here, and then they raise their children with very good courses. They choose courses for their children and keep them.
So what happens to you then? What happens to you? For the children, you have given them that kind of foundation that they need. But most of us, if not all of us, when you leave home, the idea is still, for our generation, our children, it's a different story. They've grown up here. This is what they know. But you will know that if you have some money on your hands, home is still 10 times, 100,000 better because of the way you can live a comfortable life back home. So while we are investing in the children, as you say, what do we do about that dream of going back home? Because that was the basis of coming here, to be able to go back.
I don't know, Mr. Kayira, how long you have been back home, but right now, if you are going back home and you are a kind of in the middle class, you go there when you are still young, it's going to cost you a lot more because you need to have a bodyguard. You need to have a policeman in your house. You need to have a bodyguard in your car. You need to have security around your area.
Are you political? Because I am there. I live in Uganda. I go to Uganda. I don't have a policeman. I don't have any guns.
I'm not political, but if you go there and you are known in an area where you are coming from your community, that you have got a fruit factory and you have got a nice house, you have got all this street of gas, and you have people moving up and down to Europe, and you don't have those kind of security in your house, they will come and take it.
Alhamdulillah, I thank God I've not needed to have a security guard, and I do travel very, very often. I would say I won't tell you the frequency, but
you are one in a thousand. But because what we say normally is it's not advisable for you, for example, to work and jump many holes, and in the last minute, the last hole you fall in it. Yeah?
Understood. Haji Katerega, thank you very much. Rashida Binti Idris, Haji Katerega, I think, has opened up a conversation that I can see already sort of beginning to get more hands being raised up, which means he has touched a chord with some people. He says investing in your children is the best investment. Yes, but when do you live your life? Because the children grow up and they go away and you're left to your own elements. When do you start living your own life? Rashida, go ahead, please. Salaam alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله ثم الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بارك الله فيك وجزاك الله خيرا for this chance and this topic. May Allah grant us a big yield. I mean, the topic goes around why we don't want to leave the diaspora going back home.
Yes.
Many have a statement saying home sweet home.
Yes.
East and west, home is the best. I don't know if they forget that. You have to keep that in mind. Like it or not, dead or alive, you will still go back home. Just outlining a few reasons why we still keep around. One is our faith is very small. We don't believe the mighty Allah can sustain us in all environments. We think we are prosperous, our prosperity, our success is in these countries. Huh? This is not the idea. As the sister before with the video said, we have to work and we go back home. We shall change a little bit, but then Allah's provisions are everywhere. We shall not say, oh, this country is very, it's not our place. And about the time frame, like you say, I'll work for 2 years and maybe I'll go back home. What comes between this time frame, or maybe the goals we set, they seem unachievable before us. So this is why we stay back for too long. Someone will say, I have to first buy a car, I have to build a house, I have to get a wife, I have, it's way too much of a baggage to you. So someone will be scared. Maybe as you left home, you're saying, I'll come back when I'm driving, I'll come back when I have this. When you set too many goals, you'll get afraid to move back home. Because everyone is looking at you, see how much you've achieved. So they keep hanging around in the diaspora.
But you'll notice that the sister also in the video was mentioning how we invest so much in other people and then finding it difficult to invest in our own selves. Like you're spreading out, and there's a wedding, there is a funeral, there's everybody, a phone call comes and you get it from your 20 pounds and you give someone 100 pounds back home. And while for you, yes, it's money, but it's money that you can make back tomorrow. This person takes 100 pounds, buys a packet yengano, the bando, starts doing their chapati. Before you know it, within 3 months, they've taken that 100 pounds and turned it into 1 million shillings. You are still here, still pushing for your 100 that you're struggling to find or to deal with. Could it be that probably part of the fear for us to go back home is the fear of the differences that people make while we are away? Because there are people that we went to school with, people that we left back home. You go back home, they never left to go abroad. They are not in politics, because Haji Katerega was touching that. There are people, yes, of course, who have taken the route of politics. But there are people who have just gone there, sat down, concentrated, remain in the village. You go back and you look at how much they've been able to do, and then you feel ashamed, you feel shy to stay there because they have left you so much, and yet you live abroad. Could that be one of the reasons?
Yes, that falls under one point I was about to say. Many of us are bread earners, daily bread earners. What we earn is just enough to cater for us on a daily basis. Maybe someone will ask for you for some help, you'll finance that. Yani, we don't have this much to keep aside for our future. They call it a future, which I don't know. But we don't have that much to save for when we are going back home, you know? So this is another hindrance. You spend all that you earn. This is like earning daily bread. You feed yourself, maybe you take kids at school, maybe you sustain yourself and have this daily life, the normal life, and all the basics, but keeping aside nothing. So this will keep you in the diaspora for as long as you can. Seeing yourself that you have an environment of sustenance, a good environment, but not counting about tomorrow. Some other thing, many of us compete with the people we've been with. This is not a cool. Someone will compete with the person or the people they went to school with. Oh, this one has done this one has done this. The best competition should be with yourself. This will not stress you too much. Why do you get afraid to go back home? Yet you have all that you need. Just because your neighbors have this and that, just because your neighbors are more prosperous, they have a lot more too much, just compete with yourself.
But if Rashida, can we avoid that? Can we avoid that realistically though? Because imagine you've lived in UK, you've lived in America. There is this kind of expectation. You are seeing all the big cars and so on. You come back and you are driving car. It's just normal. It will take you from point A to point B. I'm all right. It becomes difficult within the community setup. Like our society is not built up in that way. And whether you want not to compete with everybody else except competing with yourself, the societal pressure is there in your face because it's not like you're coming and entering straight into your house and not relating with the rest of the society. How do we avoid that pressure, that societal pressure that pushes us?
That society pressure is what I've just talked about. People are competing with people.
So how do we avoid it? How do you look away and
how do we avoid it? Just have this contentment. What you have is what Allah has given you. You'll not strain yourself, set higher goals and end up breaking your ribs. Tukkirize tusiime ekyo kye tuyina tuleke stressinga by'otalina bingi nnyo. If you have a company, actually obusiraamu bugamba there are 3 things you can live with and you're considered rich. Olina obulamu, olina ow'okusula, olina ekyokulya ekya buli kanaku. If you have these 3 things, kiki ekirala ky'okyasindiikiriza? These cars are things you're going to leave behind. People are just so much on these worldly things all around. I need a house. You're going to sleep just in a space of a bed. But you build a mansion, what's the use? You have cars, like 10 cars, you're driving 1 car. Huh? We just look at this and it is taking us too much, you know? Someone will go too far to achieve whatever they want. They forget, subhanAllah, let's move back to Deen. This is the number 1. Let's just move back to Deen. This is the contentment, the satisfaction we have, and all these things coming around. BBT, kind of. My next point.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
No, I'm still saying. Yeah, well, my other point, as I was saying, people set goals they can't achieve. Ovudde mu kyalo, ovudde Masaka, ogenza oyagala kwesiba ku kintu ekitali mu ssaalyo. Ate bino ebintu bye twewanikako bannange, this is bringing our death close, if you don't know that. Someone will say, before I go back to Uganda, I need this, I need that, I need this. These are the things bringing you close to your grave. Of course, Allah first. And one other thing, as I said, we are never satisfied. Omwanadamu bwe butonde bwe newofuna ki takuta paka nga yingidde kabuli. You can't believe. Someone will have something and you'll say, wow, well, if I have that, then I'll go back and settle. If it's a woman, If I get this, I'll go back and settle in my man's house. I'll go and get married. But if someone gets this, I'll say, oh, I wish I also have that. You get that. Oh, I wish I have two of that. You know, that is the chain of how much you want. It is endless until you enter your grave.
Thank you very much, Rashid. Hajat Sarah, your hand was up, and then I'll go to Jaden. In the meantime, Hajat Sarah, as you come in, Haj Katere goes back to say thanks again. There is a new kind of community who have thrown away the extended families. They simply cater for their family, and they don't want to know what comes, what others go through. If you do this, then you'll be able to see the difference in your life. Faisal Nsubuga says, I don't know if there is a different Uganda on the map, but the Uganda Haji Katerega was talking about is a bit exaggerated. Depends also whether you have been surviving in UK or living, because if you have been living in shared accommodation with a Katoch phone and eating frozen and processed food with only a bed in your bedroom, then you are likely to save and toil to start investments in Uganda. But if you're living, say, with a council house of your own, with a family of 3 or 4, and you have TV bills and phone bills, as well as rent and council taxes, changing clothes and having all basic like healthcare, insurance, etc., the chance for you isn't that easy to raise 100 million to buy land back home. Hi, Sarah, you're on the mic. Go ahead. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Good to have you, and good to have all the people who have joined the conversation tonight. Yes, fire away, please.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Keke. I think one of the reasons, well, if I'd look for a few, that makes us really find it difficult to go back home is, well, some of us who have come here for economical reasons, we lose a lot of time, not because we want to, but time just goes by. Mainly because some struggle to get the papers, to get a good income or start working. And before you know it, if you came here, like for me, I came when I was 42, I'm now 57 years. And by 57, you look back and you ask yourself, what am I going to go back to do in Uganda, especially if you have got your family here? Recently, I brought all my children this year. They're here, at least 3 of them are, and some grandchildren. My dad died in November this year. So now, when I look back, I ask myself, what am I going to do? These guys who have just brought into the country need me, and they need my support because I've been here long, for like 15 years. I need to help them get the reins and navigate the waters here. When you look at the few investments one has done, like I'm just going to talk about me, I've built some rentals. The amount of money that is collected when you have some tenants who even stay in your house and leave after many months without paying, it's peanut, you can't live on it. So you find, you start getting worried. At my age, what am I going to start investing in? Because if you thought that tenants' houses will bring you your pension, it's not coming through. Yeah, and there is a lot of uncertainties. This is a country you haven't lived in for a long time. You've lost friends. You've even your relatives. Sometimes it's even difficult to relate to your relatives because they become distant. Some had hope in you looking after them and their families, and you haven't done that. So they have written you off. And if you've now developed a community where you lived with all the 15 years and over, then these have become your friends and families, and it's hard to leave them. And when we talk about the age we get into, because if you came in a bit older in your 30s and you've lived here like 30 years, or maybe 20 years, by the time you think about going home, you're in your 50s, then you have developed some illnesses. And you're in healthcare, you're here getting your prescription every month, something you might find really hard to do when you're back home. Medical care at home is extremely expensive. So if you're ill, I've had to look after my dad, and my God, the holes that he left in my pockets. Well, it's my responsibility to do that, but I found it extremely expensive. Every time he went in hospital, paying the medical bills, maybe buying for him nappies and stuff, it is extremely expensive. Now, you picture yourself in that situation. Now, if you got your family here, you ask yourself, who's going to look after me when I go back home? Who is going to nurse me? Because we are getting to that age where we need help. You don't even have a grandchild to send to get you something because you need your family around you. So, and then I've seen people who have really had money and have invested back home. Then they worry about security. They find it really difficult to be there. They're frightened of the news, of everything that's happened. A few people have been murdered by even their families because they have given them money to do stuff for them and they haven't. They're also fearful. Yeah, and they have then turned into killing them. I've seen those who have really packed their bags and gone home when they have already built houses and stuff. But you know how clever Ugandans are. Some have been cheated of the little money they wanted to invest. They can't do with the taxes. If you try to go back home and you're like, okay, I'll go to China and start importing stuff and put up a shop, the taxes you're charged at the airport when you bring in your goods, you can't afford. And also, even when you bring your goods and you're lucky to do that, the rent you pay, and yet you don't even have customers to buy stuff. People started shops and they have closed them. Those who have built their houses or like invested in tenants' houses, they have sold them to start and get more capital to keep moving because you're not going to get, money from the tenants' houses. Some people are not that lucky to get it. And yet you still have to eat and live. You know, the cost of living in Uganda is really high. For some of us, we find it really extremely expensive. You go on holiday.
Is it because of the lifestyle that you have built, Hajat Sarah? Because
no, I don't say that. Everything is costly.
Well, I'm saying that, and I'm playing devil's advocate here because I went to Uganda. I've gone to Uganda. Well, I go to Uganda a lot of times, at least 4 times a year. And in all these times, there are times I've gone in and I've decided I'm living like an ordinary Ugandan. And I've seen why, even when you think it's kind of difficult or hard, these are lives that sometimes we live through. But because you have lived a different lifestyle, you build up a kind of new way of thinking that now makes it hard for you to be able to live a particular life. And therefore, you struggle. Life becomes expensive because, so on average, let me probably put it this way. How much money do you think can sustain you in Uganda a month on average? Just sort of, because you're saying the cost of living is quite high.
I have no idea because you know why? If I change like 500 pounds, if I am there and I go to the Forex Bureau and I get my 2M, if I go to a supermarket, I can't even fill a trolley. I find it difficult to fill up a trolley of shopping. Yet that 500 pounds, it can take me through a month here. I don't know whether food is more expensive in Uganda than here, but I find it extremely expensive. Kaila, you got your farm whereby you can slaughter a rabbit, you can slaughter your goat, so you don't know the price of meat.
Right. Well, that's what I was that's what I was saying. And that's part of the investment, because as you're thinking, you are throwing towards that. The local chicken will just grow. You keep one, they will keep, hatching and laying
but who is going to look after it? Your family members are going to eat all the chicken and you find nothing if you don't have enough money to, even if you did. Well, I did visit one of my friends who had a poultry farm.
Yes.
And as we were speaking, one of his farm managers had slaughtered some chicken and cooked it. And then the dog went into the house and just came
and stole the chicken. Stole the chicken.
And the poor man was so sad. He was like, imagine, sometimes I go without eating chicken, and this man is eating chicken on a daily basis.
And now the dog has brought it all to the fore.
He's so sad. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's really sad.
Yes, but Sarah, because we are talking about the realities, because now I think we should try to demystify some of these things. You've spoken about the cost of living being high, but I went on average and I said I want to try and live on 2.5 million a month. And yes, of course, you've mentioned me, not having to rely on the chicken or the meat because you have the alternatives here. But then on the other things, because once I got my soap, once I got my salt, sugar, I don't take them. So I go on to the honey there. And then I started looking at how to maximize. I tried to put myself, of course, a Ugandan, a normal Ugandan, probably 2.5 million is a lot of money for a month. But still, for a person who was spending that high, because for me, I realized the biggest expenditure that I do in Uganda is fuel. And therefore, I went to Total. They give you a fuel card. You apply for a fuel card and you top up money. Because I was coming out of the blue, you just take away Tano, take away Satwa, take a Mugumu. It was becoming too much. Go to Total, got a fuel card. I get my fuel card, put 1 million shillings. 100,000 is each time is what I put in the car, 100,000, unless I'm going to travel far from the city. 100,000, and I know that will cover me for 2 days on average again. So with that, once I got control of fuel, everything else started falling into place. I do not travel unless it is something that is planned. This business of Kampala, where you just wake up out of the blue, once you cut out that, because people in Uganda, it's amazing how they live their lives. And this might be across, maybe we are referring to Uganda, but this is a global community conversation that we might have people from Kenya, from Tanzania, as part of the conversation, or even West Africa. But the idea is once you start controlling some of these things that eat away much of the money, then you're beginning to cut down. You go to visit Masaka, come back with 2 bunches of matoke, have them there in store in a way that now will cut away the idea of having to go to buy your miera in Kampala and therefore make it expensive. As you're driving, food sales on the roadsides is a lot cheaper. You go to Masaka, you are there before Kayabwe, you find the sweet potatoes, buy them, you're buying them cheaper, so that wherever I can buy in bulk, you buy in bulk and you store. I buy my rice, 100 or 50 kilograms sack, put it there, 25 kilograms sugar. That is for visitors. I won't be drinking the sugar. So once you get this in control, you suddenly start realizing, how you start moving. And that's what they say about a copy. You remove these unnecessary expenditures which just come out of the blue, and you start seeing a sense beginning to build up a picture. Many people don't even know how much money they spend a month in Uganda when they've traveled, because it is just expenditure. I just wanted to bring this to sort of just shake a little bit into you.
I'm listening. And I
was just giving you a picture. I'm just wondering if you've managed to do any of these, because as part of the, as part of looking at it, and I can see Haj Makumbi's hand, yes, Jaden here is saying that's a good point, KK. I've survived on 100 pounds in 2 weeks. Actually, I think I have as well. Just taking it down, like to the fuel and so on. Once you work out on that, but I've agreed with you very much on the taxes and the tax regime in government. But I've also realized how many things are back that people will never tell you. I'll tell you. Just the week that just ended, someone calls me and says, Haji Kayira, please help me. I applied for a water pump, solar water pump. Government has brought solar water pumps. December is the last month. If you don't get it, you've missed it. How much is it? It's 1 million. And on the market, they were coming in at 3.5 million. Government is giving you 30% like reduction. So you only pay 30%. Government subsidizes you by 70%. Even the local authority people that I hang out with that will come to my farm and eat and whatever, nobody was telling me this. This is an ordinary person who is telling me because they are stuck. I paid 250,000. I can't find the 750. Haji Kayira, please help me. And I say, is that just specific to you, or even I can apply? He said, you can apply. And he went and applied for me. Something that I would have bought for 3.5 million, available at 1 million, subsidized. Nobody's telling you. You just need to know, like you need to put yourself on the ground. One thing I've seen with people coming from Europe, we go there and you're hanging high. If you hang high, they will hang you high. Go down on earth, be a simple person, understand the dynamics, and you will enjoy your life, like living down there. I can assure you. There's a tuk-tuk, these tuk-tuk which work on the farms. The tuk-tuk is 10 million shillings. You can get it from government at 3 million. You don't have to be anyone. Leave alone these things of someone in politics. Wallahi. 3 million, because government is paying 70% for you and you're only paying 30%. Nobody is going to tell you this, Hajat Sarah. When you come, they won't allow you to know, because and I only heard because someone was desperate for money. But of course, they then told me, and I come to benefit from that. Border at 5 million, you are paying 1 million because government is paying 70% for you. These are things that you don't hear. No politics involved, no LC, no nothing. This is just your ordinary person as a farmer. Sorry, I think I've rambled on too much, but I just wanted to give you a picture that once you get on the ground, abantu abanseeranga ettaka najjanaga haji, they've said is 3 million. Ne wetuukira ku ttaka muzeeyi mwennyini ajja akaaba bwati with the bent back. Haji osiibye otya? Immediately they arrive, cup of tea, bread which they take forever to see, ka blue band kungulu okwo mugati na butter. By the time the man finishes to eat, he's telling you, Haji, at how much? Reduced price. Because you are on the ground. The moment you are away, you cannot, be beneficiary to this. Ajat Sarah, back to you. I've finished my rambling.
I think I've also finished. Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, you finished? All right, I'll go to Isama.
What I would say that we all have our different look at life, and we have had also our different experiences. So I'm glad, at least for you, maybe you're there more time than we do. When you go, like if you're going to spend like 4 weeks, I don't think you'd know what is going on in Uganda. They'll be just driving you around, and you'll be the one. They'll be more in control than you be in control. You don't have any control at all. Yes. So it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. Maybe one needs more time. It
helps a lot when you can get your own time. They don't allow you to get to certain places. When you want to know information, someone is denying you right to important information that you might have benefited from, like that old man.
But there's also another problem, Shekeke. If you are on a unemployed kind of leave, you're not taking leave for yourself, whereby you have to come at a certain time and then go back at a certain time. There's lots you're going to miss. And you never get the right picture, and that way you can't make the right decision.
And the people in Uganda will make sure they prolong, because when you come, a lot of us even start telling how long you are going to be around. These people are listening. The builder will try to delay they all delay until you board the plane, and then they go back to their old habits. Some of the ways are, two, don't say how long you are staying, especially when you are still in this business of investment, while you're planning to go ultimately and stay there. Hajat Sarah, thank you very much. I'm sure we are still together in the conversation. As I bring in Haji Samakumbi, acknowledging Owais, AK, Alia, Zam, Faisal Nsubuga, Mariam Texas, Mariam Mo, Muhammad Nyanzi, Jaden, Amina Amba, Mastura, Haji Kateriga, and Isaac Winongo, who I'll come to at some point once I'm finished with Isa Makumbi. Isaac, please be in position. I'm sure we will have to hear from you as the first time on the show to hear what you have to say to us. Haji Isa Makumbi, please go ahead. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I've heard stories which is unbelievable, and Haji Kateriga is passing it a bit to an extent. To scare people.
He has his own experience, and I think he's talking from his personal experience.
I've seen people who are so rich, you see them moving around Kampala with no bodyguards. They move freely. But otherwise, that is a very, very interesting story. For me, because I lived in 3 countries. Short time I was in Russia for 6 years, moved out. When I graduated, I went to Libya, worked there had a contract with no debt. I decided myself that I have to live there 4 years. Then I moved out. After 4 years, I left, I resigned my job, went somewhere, went to London. It was just on my way to Kampala when things get worse. And then said that is unacceptable. Then I overstayed in London for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Over 30 years. So actually I've been abroad for more than 40 years. People, what they've been talking around, really Kampala is not as bad as they say. There are investing opportunities. You have to know and how to think twice. People, when they are deciding to come to Kampala, they don't plan. Most of those who have moved away from Kampala to go to Britain, they plan when they're going there. What should I say at the airport? Where should I live? How can I struggle? How can I find the cheapest accommodation? And like that. But if you're coming back to Uganda, you have to reverse, do the same thing. They were born in Uganda. As soon as you move out a year enough or 2 years, you become a foreigner into your country. The language they speak, you don't understand it. The tricks they use to fleece you, they are very expert at that. When that you are coming back, though you have got black skin, you become a Mzungu. If you have been identified as a Mzungu, life becomes very expensive. Anything, say, costs around, say, 10,000, they take somewhere, add on at least another 20 to say it is around 30,000. The person who takes you there has a commission, or they split the difference. That's why I find that when you're coming back to Kampala, life is very expensive and people can't afford to live here for more than 3 weeks. But if you are coming back, it's a long process. I've been telling Ugandans, if you are coming to Kampala, don't pack. Get your money and then you move to Kampala. The longest you could be sent Kampala is 6 months. By then you are packed to go back.
But so 6 months is the litmus test for survival. If you survive 6 months, then you will survive for the rest.
Yeah. The thing is, what I usually say, you have to prepare. It's a long-term process that you need to do and to dig in and invest properly. I've been telling people that if you are coming to Kampala or moving to Uganda, why should you buy land in Kampala? It's very expensive. You never make any money. Move 30 miles or 20 miles, you buy land there, put something to keep it busy, come back after 10 years. The amount of money you make from that will be enough money to kickstart your life in Uganda. It will give you enough capital to do investment. People, when they say that they have gone into retail or building houses, you have to know the location. If you build a house, the same amount of money in some areas whereby you can't get more returns, you don't want to make money. But if you get a good location, you can make money. I can barely tell you that there are some flats over here, houses, which is costing around, say, $1,000 for rent. And if you put how much money you put in, it's not all that much. If you're on the ground, everything becomes cheaper because you can shop around, you know where the bargains are, you know the community, you know who wants to sell and who wants to cheat you. But for us, when we come to Kampala, we hang on with those brothers and sisters who are there to exploit you. They take the most expensive parts areas to spend the money. But people have been talking about if you're doing business, you have to be more inclined to the government. No, that is scaring. That's scaring people off. You can do your business, nobody will interfere. As long as you manage your books, you pay the tax. When you're abroad, you pay tax. But when you come back to Ghana, you don't want to pay tax. People complain about tax. You know how much they pay in London? Taxes that they pay? Or that they don't account, they don't consider that. But when you come to Kampala, if you know the system, you pay less tax. But when they're saying that Kampala is very expensive, it's not all that expensive. Depends on your lifestyle. If you want to go to Acacia or Lugogo, you know that if you spend at least 2 million would be enough.
Haji Sabakumbi, allow me to read these text messages. You go on, stay on. Faisal Nsubuga, I think it might relate with what you're trying to say. Faisal Nsubuga here says in the chat room, the biggest problem is because people fail to adjust like some people when they move to the UK and fail to adjust, hence fail to progress economically and socially. When I moved to Uganda, I was spending 1 million a day. Wow. 1 million a day until I realized I have to adjust. I have to go to wholesale shops and bargain on prices. You have to know that you're going to struggle in any new environment, and that's the sunnah of life. Faisal, I can't forget the day I found you in a supermarket with a very full trolley. I'm sure you had spent part of that million. Go ahead, Issa Makumbi.
Yeah, when I say there are a lot of investment opportunity in this place, I can give an example. If you come to Kampala, if you got land, you can plant a banana. Within 1.5 years, you'll be making money. How much does it need to look after that? You've been talking about the pump. I've been telling people, dig down below the ground, 60 meters, you get water. As soon as you get water, you can do irrigation. You can do all those things. It's very easy to make money from that. If you are looking after goats, it's very easy to, if you got land, to do all those things. But for us, you say they're going to do the business, you buy land, you don't want to be there, to stay there. You want to have somebody looking after your farm when you're in Kampala. You do farming on the phone. You can't do farming on the phone. Unless you change the lifestyle, you can afford to come to live in this place. But
now, Issa, the point of tonight's conversation was also looking so much on the impact on couples where you're ready to go and your wife is not ready to go. You managed to. What sort of conversation did you have? Was your wife ready to leave, or how was that for you?
For me, I say that whenever my children go away, they become independent, they come leave my home. That's when I realize that life can change. Because I used to have boys around, girls around, who used to give me a time to argue with them about their behavior, coming late, all those things. When they moved out the house, that's when you really hit me hard. Think that it's high time to change the location. Because I was friends, I had a few friends. My own life was just to go to work and come home. When I found that life is unacceptable, all of us were agreed that it's high time we have to move. We said, if we are ready to move, how can I do it? I said, let me first go there first, be there to sample it around, get used to the area, have connections. Then after 2 years, you follow. That's how I made it. We decided that within 2 years, you have to go there, sample it around, get things done, start getting things done, starting doing the business, then eventually you have to come and join you. That was the agreement. The maximum was 2 years for planning for us to go home. Because I was here, she was working. So I was finishing all much of my work that had been pending. I was finishing up, setting up the business.
And she wasn't worried that you might get a hajat there quickly. Uganda were very available so much that over that period you might be stolen. That's always the fear, the biggest fear for most
that was not on my agenda. Though when I was leaving, people told that
being on your agenda is one thing, but most women put yourself in their hearts or in her heart at that time. She wasn't worried that that would happen, or you've lived together long enough that she cannot be worried about you possibly getting a hajat there.
Because I had lived with her for more than 30 years, so she knew my character and my behavior. All those days are gone.
That's always the biggest fear for many. You just say again, get what? And those in Kampala also know this man is coming from abroad, and therefore the anticipation is high.
I had so many of them who expressed their interest to move in, but I was not giving them I was not letting them in. Yes. And I had some instances where I used to come here, young girls coming around in the minis, sit looking around, but I was not in that camp. So I decided that I've had enough of those. So I was a married man. I was not more interested in moving with all those young girls.
So you managed to do your 2 years comfortably until Madame was able to come in once you had established yourself.
Yeah, I did my 2 years. Then after that, she came back, joined me. But what I always advise people, I think the best thing I've done is to relocate back to Uganda. When you are still working, it's easier to live around. But the day you retire, or you go in the office when they're trying to push you around. You saw those redundancies every time. I was working with local authorities, but how much restructure was on the knock? Restructure was everywhere, whereby uncertainty were there that anytime you could lose your job. So moving out to take out all that pressure. So nowadays I don't have anything. I am happy here. I've got to this area. I'm doing some other things which are really progressive. And I think what I used to tell people, there are a lot of opportunities in this place which you can do and make money.
So
and what I've told
so Issa, if your wife had said she wasn't willing to come along to move with you, would you still have gone ahead, or what would have happened? I'm giving a supposition here. Yeah.
That is a very tricky question, but I think I knew how it was. Whenever we do anything we do, we have to talk over it and over and over and again.
All right. So thank you very much, Issa.
I was not sure. She was sure that whenever I move to Kampala, she was not scared or not certain that anybody could get another Hajat around. So that was not her fear.
Barakallahu fikum, Issa Makumbi. Let me just bring in more people into the conversation. And in the meantime, do acknowledge on the group, on the conversation as part of tonight's conversation, Narongo Jaria in the background, Fatuma Muchiwi, iPhone NK, Remy RM, Abu Fahima, Nus, Zara, and OnePlus GN2200. I don't know who that is, but I'm sure there. Jaden, please go ahead, and then I'll come to Dumba. Umma connected, and then Dumba. But as Jaden comes in, a quick message here from Isaac Mwinongo, who was one of the first people to join the conversation tonight. He says, Haji, I'm just starting my journey as I'm doing my master's in analytics. I plan to bring my young family here. One, I get a job, plan to invest both here and in Uganda. I'm enjoying listening to the seniors for ideas and opportunities. Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining this global communication. Boss, I do all what you do, but I spend at least 1 million every day in Kampala. Oh, well, come on, go ahead. I'll want to hear that 1 million. Jaden, once I've come from you, Jaden, please go ahead. Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm doing fine, alhamdulillah. I just want to start with the point that you left with Sheikh Makumbi, Haji Makumbi there about
had Madame said no, or is that where?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's about the fear that
the fear that you might involve a Hajati, a second Hajati there, yes.
But by the time you decide to relocate back to Uganda, Kenya, or wherever, and leave your children here, it would mean that, one, the children are semi-independent, they're old enough, and if your children are old enough, going by the average of when most of us started having children, we are in our sunset age, and it's difficult. Your wife knows that even if you go chasing a car, you'll not be able to drive that car. So that fear is completely unfounded.
Jaden, Uganda is a different kettle of fish, and the people who come are not necessarily after your driving abilities. They want what you have gathered together so far. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, but what I wanted to bring to point is the point that was brought by Haji Katerega, which I found useful, but at the same time quite alarming, because the three categories of immigrants that much we accept. People came here for those three reasons that he stated: fear for life and all that. But once we got here, those three fears turn into three different things. There's people who look for easy life, the kind of life that you press a switch and things come to you. That's the kind of life some people look for, and they get stuck on. The other one, unfortunately, is for the healthcare. Once you reach our age, you develop those illnesses which are long-lasting, and you can only find good treatment in the West. The treatment is there in Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania, but it would be unaffordable. So that's the other reason that keeps people here. The final that lack of vision, which many people find themselves stuck in. And they get torn between the luxuries of the West, and at the same time, they look at what opportunities are available in Uganda or Kenya or Tanzania. And when people go back to back to Africa, I'll generalize Africa because we've got people from South Africa and the rest. When people go back, they go with the mentality of they're high up in the pedestal, and instead of starting a chicken farm, they want to start with a factory developing something or producing clothes and all that. So we put ourselves in a position where we cannot compete with those who have already established there. One, we don't know the business. Two, our capital is not there. And three, we go with the sole purpose of showing the locals that we have come back, we are the Bazungu in and there are people there waiting to help you spend £1 million, £1 million shillings in a day. Because how do you justify that? When I'm here in Newcastle, I struggle and look for where they sell beans, where they sell granuts, and where they sell all the African foods in the local Indian shops. I'm not going to travel all the way to London to look for those things. But when some of us go to Kampala, we start shopping in Nakasero. We move all the way from Bombo. I'm going to buy tomatoes in Nakasero. I'm going to Obulenzi. And yet you've got the local farmers who are selling fresh produce next door to your house. But because you want to show the locals that you can afford these things, that's why people end up spending that kind of money. They also mentioned about comparing ourselves and the Asians, that when Asians come here, they look at the vision of the West and they don't look at going back. Theirs is simple. They don't have the land to go back to. The population of India, Bangladesh, and so on is so high that you can't even get a square meter of land to put something. So for them, their position is decided for them by what is at home. But for us from Africa, we've got all that, all the space, as Haji Bakumbi said. Instead of finding land in the center of Kampala, travel a little bit further and you'll find yourself, you can build yourself a bigger mansion and enjoy the environment as it is. Now, the issue of politics that Haji Katerega brought in, once you leave those environments of politics and come to the West and you've stayed a few years, by the time you go back, people have forgotten about you. So it's just in your head that they're looking for you. I've known people who have been in the deep of things. When I call it the deep of things, they've been in the forces, they've been in politics, they've been in intelligence. They have come and lived in the West for 5 years. And by the time they go back, nobody recognizes them. So the issue of having to go back to Kampala and looking for bodyguards to keep you safe. Haji Kassim, we have been there. You've come to my place without an escort. If anything, you've come with a female passenger for company. You've not looked for what they'll call a muscle man to take you around with your money. That only comes if you walk with money on your face. If you show them that you've got money in your face. Even here in Newcastle, if you walk with your wallet hanging, somebody is bound to remove it from you. You will attract the wrong kind of people, and they will take it from you. Rashida mentioned something about the hereafter. That is fair. We all look for the hereafter, but we don't have to sacrifice our comfort for the hereafter. We strive for that. Every Muslim strives for that. But if we are going to follow that doctrine of saying strive for the hereafter and forget the here now, many of us will be living on the streets and just sitting on our musalas day in and day out and forgetting to feed, to wear.
Even Allah puts that clear in the Quran, Mr. Jadin. Allah says, "Ba'da billahi minash shaitanir rajim. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا." While he tells us to work for the hereafter, He says, while doing that, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Do not forget your portion of what is on earth. Before you get there, you have to be here, and therefore make best use of that being there. But Jaden, of course, our conversation was so much as well looking at the idea of trying to relocate, and if one of the couples, one of the partners in a relationship is unwilling to go. Look at Haji Katerega here saying, if the wife doesn't allow you to move out to Uganda for future investments, ignore her and go and prove them wrong. Most women, I just missed that. Most women think that when we move out to Uganda, all they think is that we are going to get married and don't want to be a party to join hands. But you must plan your journey on your investments, and she will only join in when she realizes that you are progressing. So if wife refuses, if your partner refuses to follow you, what do you do in a situation like that?
I think it all depends on how you sell it. And selling, I'm using that advisedly. We are not going to expect anything in return from her. But how you put the plan to her, that this plan is not just for myself, but it's for us and for the children. And you give the option that you can go and start this plan and I'll follow you, or the option of I'll go and start this plan and you can follow me. Or we can go together and do it jointly and see how it goes, but we leave a foot here for the sake of the children, or for the sake of what we call insurance. If things backfire there, you've got something.
Doesn't that take away, because this fear where you want to keep one leg behind, I know the fears that we might have, but doesn't that affect your ability to actually enjoy the going back? Because part of you is still thinking, because part of what I've seen, actually, when we were leaving this country, may God subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on my friend, my brother, Idisef. We quit the BBC on the same day. He had been there 25 years, I'd been there 17 years. We decided we were leaving and we are going back to Uganda. The last 5-6 months of our stay in the BBC was actually half devoted to the work in the office, but half devoted to internet and, Googling and studying stuff, how to grow tomatoes, greenhouses, blah, blah, where to do this. The amount of research that we gathered, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him, it's nearly 2 years now since he died. We were sort of so ready. And the word that he used to use, which we were saying to ourselves, is we say, most people live here and they say, they can let me go and try. Once you tell yourself that you are going to try, you have allowed yourself to fail. Because when you try, you leave room for failure. But when you say, I'm going to do, there is no looking back. So essentially, you are just saying, I'm immersing myself wholesomely into this. So part of that was some people leave and they've gone to try, but they've not gone to do. That's one area that I've seen. But in case, of course, a partner doesn't allow, subhanallah, it might be a difficult one, Jaden.
Let me put it a different way.
Yes, while I'm bringing Umma connected in. Yes?
When you left your parents' home to start your own home, and your wife came to join you, there are things that you've left behind at your parents' home. If it is not the recipe that your mom taught you, it's maybe that piece of advice that you want to go back to your dad. And that is the kind of insurance I'm talking about. You leave something behind where you can fall back to without necessarily relocating. But it's all in Allah's plan. You cannot say you will go and it will succeed firsthand. If it does, alhamdulillah, you're grateful for that. But look at the time that we have spent here, working behind computers, working behind laptops and with headsets on our heads. By the time you relocate to go and work in Karule, Kasanja, Kotido, wherever, where you've got to touch the hoe and to pull ropes and do all kinds of things, it's going to take you a lot of time to adjust. And it's that piece of adjustment which makes the difference or which tears the relocation. If you can adjust to that, and that depends for real, or are you going back?
All right, thanks very much, Jaden. Uma connected, your hand has been up. I'm just trying to get you to unmute. Is that Zaid?
That shop because you want to add your background.
Right.
So it's difficult, but I think the topic that you have brought today would be more in terms of how do we relocate, because when you bring husband and wife in, it can open wounds in some families, because this discussion I know takes place.
Well, I was just thinking in terms of you are ready to go and wife doesn't want to go, and how you would navigate that. Yes, all right, no problem.
So you don't want to be responsible for anything that happens.
All right. Barakallahu fikum. Uma connected. Hajat Sarah here says in the chat room, when you live close to Kampala, you cannot get local people selling foodstuffs from their gardens as there are no gardens. Hajat Sarah, that's not true, and I'll prove to you. If you have any doubts, please let me know next time you're in. Work on dunya like you will never leave, and work for akhirah like you are leaving tomorrow. I had one sheikh say that. Yes, that has. I have a question for Sheikh KK. Are you planning to go back to Uganda? If so, and how long or when? Well, I'm already out. I'm already out. Uma connected. I'm just waiting to hear your voice there. Sheikh KK, one thing I realized, we have to put so much trust in the system of the West. We know if we fail, we have the government to back us up. Benefits. We have to put our trust in Allah and take all the necessary means. If you fail, you get back up and fight. Regarding the partner, it depends on how you've been behaving in the diaspora. Are you lazy? Are you promiscuous? Have you been providing etc? Yes, Uma Connect, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hey, that's Hafsa. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Shay, I just wanted to say that most women, we are afraid of risks. When your husband tells you, I'm going to go to Uganda and I'm going to invest, most of us women are first scared. We are always scared of losing. How much money is going to invest and how much is it going to lose? Because we always are scared of the unknown. Many a times we're scared. It's very hard to say, okay, akati ngenze, ngenda kola business, wait, no chiruka, omukazi nagamba, kali genda. We're always scared of losing money. Always. I don't know how, but that I think is in our nature. Chidara, when you have kids who are young, I'll speak for I for one. It's my husband says that angenda moving Uganda mugamba abana bakyali bato tusoke tulindeko. Not because that they cannot survive, but I'm thinking, Aneda, it attends them masomero, amalwaliro, and I'm thinking of all those unknowns. And then you go back. And then one of them wants to go, and then for you, you decide to stay. You're pulling strings. Again, the first month, couple months, the scent is Ziffer. And then you start, I told you so. Yes. I told you so. And those things take a toll on couples. It ends up taking almost a year or more. When finally business really kicks off and you're like, okay, comfortable. But it always does take a toll on a couple.
Hasfa, while you are at it, because one thing I've realized that, yes, men are more risk takers than women when it comes to that. And I see the fear of loss of money. Women are more committed, like when they come in, and even in investment decisions. Sometimes as a man, you will say, I'm going into this, I want to put in, droplets. I put in bits and build up something. Wife wants to come wholesale. She says, I'm saving this money. I want to go. We were thinking about going step by step while allowing other things to move. The approach alone to investment now would start, deciding even where you're going in terms of the direction until you get to the point of departure. One of the biggest fears when you say you fear the risk of loss, it's the loss of money sometimes can be withstood. But the biggest fear you actually worry about is this man will go and will get a woman in Uganda. that, or in Africa, elsewhere in Africa. That is always fear number one. About money, about security. I think we've lived in other situations. Women, you can really, I mean, as for deny this if you can, and I'll put you to task. I can tell you for sure, 90% of the worries of women for, like husbands going back, like to really say, I'm going back, let me go and start working. You see, like how Issa Makumbi said, I went back, we agreed 2 years, go establish, set the ground. Once you've done that, you'll see it. There is Haji Sagara here, family of Haji Sagara here in UK. The way they would do it, wife would go, do about 5-6 months, come back. Husband goes, do 5-6 months, come back. And the way they were swapping and the way it naturally just worked out so well, it got to a point where even now the children had grown up. Of course, they were sort of independent. And these two could now afford to comfortably, like ship themselves and go. And while at it, there are particular investments that once you put money, because a lot of times I think we lose a lot of money as people in the diaspora, because like Jaden, I think, touched on a little bit, or is it Issa Makumbi, mentioned something about pouring a lot of money into a project. So you go in, you do a gigantic thing whose viability and feasibility you've not done. You've dreamt about the project, but the realities on the ground are different. So you go, you pour in something into a huge project. There is a friend who went establish a big fish farm, but sort of building a construction inside, and he was going to do fish ponds, but built inside. Nearly 800 million. Thing has never brought even a single coin. Why? Because the business dynamics are different where the local person is. There are times when you just go back and you look at the rural economics. You understand the rural economics, and once you understand the rural economics, we are used to getting a lot of money. When you go to this droplet money, it becomes difficult, Hasfa. Well, you've muted yourself, but I need you to come back because I was just trying to lay out a picture just in terms of the kind of investment decisions, the conversations that we have, the fears that we have. But once you have understood the dynamics of how you go into rural economics where you're going to sell your cabbage for 700. 700 feels like little money, but 700 for 100 cabbages is already 70,000. That is quite something, So this is what I'm talking about, that once you start understanding the rural economy, these people go there and do it small, and then they build it up so fast. Before you know it, you have the money in place. But the biggest worry, the biggest conflict for many families is wife is worried once husband crosses that border, agenda kubeki wo.
Shekeke, I mean, to each is their own. Ndowooza abakazi naturally, we are tweyagaliza ffekka, we are jealous, I guess I should say that, and I think that comes with the territory. Now, if someone wants to do wholesale investment, there's always a fear. Katigogambe, if you go in small and it starts building small and it starts building, then no lokolaba if there is a return. Naye waliwo abamu ng'abaami are stubborn. Nze bakindukidde nakitegedde. Bwe ngenda n'enkwata wano n'enkwata wali kijja kukwatayo. Kubanga sometimes men tabawuliriza abakyala because they think maybe they are not that business savvy. So that in itself can create some kind of friction. But ekyokuwasa, to each is their own. I have seen cases anyways where omwami yali akola mu World Bank, n'afuna retirement here, there's lots and lots of money. N'agenda e Kampala bamulukidde ekintu as an engineer abagenda byaku railway or something, essente ne zifa, n'awasayo n'omukazi. Namula namugamba sijajjidde ddala. So to each is their own, Chekeke.
I hear you. And well, just quick message here. I think Issa Makumbi's hand is back up, and so is Katerega. But Katerega raises something interesting here that I would just like to read out. And 90% of all youngsters who go back to establish any investment end up breaking up. Why? Due to lack of trust. The dynamics of trade back home is wrapped up in a very sophisticated style that will take up time to catch up the system. No, you just, well, you learn. As long as you're willing to learn, I think there are opportunities for one to be able to catch up. You just take your deep breath and you're able to go. Sheikh Dumba, I bring you in here. Your hand was up at a certain point and then you disappeared simply because I can see new hands up, but they have already managed to speak and you haven't had a chance to have your say. Sheikh Dumba, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello, Dumba. I thought I could see you. Did you just disappear? Dumba, one more chance before I go back to Issa Makumbi. Okay, Issa Makumbi, please go ahead. Come in while I get to bring in Sheikh Dumba and Haji Katerega back. Issa Makumbi, you can unmute yourself.
Again, I think why people fail to come back, or women are scared, allowing the husband to come relocate back to Uganda or anywhere else, it's the trust. If you are doing any investment, it has to be a joint investment. If you are buying land, it has to be joint. If it's held by a husband and a wife, they work together. But usually have problem with some ladies. They keep if you have that thing in your mind, you will never succeed.
But it's also about trust, Haji Issa, because they are fearing
now. If it is a joint venture, how can you throw out? It is just the trust that you have to build on. And people, when they say that, Jaden said an example. For me, I praise my mom. Let her rest in peace. When I left senior four, she kicked me out of the house indirectly. Says, you've grown up, go and live with your uncles, go and live with that, blah, blah. She made life very uncomfortable at home. That one built me a culture whereby if I do anything, I have to stick it. There's nothing to fall back. But people, when they say they're coming to do anything over here, they don't make up their mind. You make your mind that I'm going to do this business. And the most thing that brings people down, if you're going on an investment, don't go the big way. Go the big way for the big way. I can give an example of those who say, I'm going to do poultry, looking after chicken, whatever it is. Start with 20 or 30. The problem you are faced with that, as soon as you overcome that, you can manage to keep at least 1,000. People, when they're saying that they are going to do all building houses, people will end up in a problem. Say, I'm building 6 flats. Why 6 flats? They end up having, say, you made your saving, you come over here, 40% or 60% to get a bank loan. Why should you go for the bank loan? If you go in those ways, you're bound to fail. Because if you get a bank loan, they will take it. They give a grace period of, say, 60 days, start servicing the loan. Yet the venture have gone in, hasn't materialized, hasn't made any money. So most likely you are bound to fail. Do things the easy way, do some research, but if you go the big way, it becomes a problem. And from when I was living, when I made my way, the day I left, it was a month before I left, the wife put the house on for rent. Someone moved in. I had to stay with my son for 1 month. And what I went through that, there was no falling back because I don't have any accommodation. First of all, I left, the house has been rented out, I've gone. Whatever happens, I have to succeed. And the other thing is investment opportunities. People don't really think, don't go by those stories. People spice up, you do this, you make money. Do this, you get money. Do this, money will come. If you are coming to Uganda, if you want to relocate, at least have a saving for at least a year that can keep you moving and live your own way. Don't try to show off. Just be like anybody. As soon as you be like anybody, you jail in. They know that you don't have any money. They give you deals because they say, oh, this man has left, blah, blah, blah. They try to sympathize. Then they give you business. But if you show them that you are too rich, they'll be coming for your money. See, do it simple way, and then you can manage to relocate. What I've been advising about my sister, the fear of losing their mate. It is, if it is a joint venture, you are protected by law. There is no way that man can kick you out. If you buy land between Mr. and Mrs., don't say Mr. Kayira, Mrs. Kayira, no. Mrs. Safina Kayira. That one pins it down. You can't lose anything. And when it comes to ventures, do it to discuss it with your wife. Get ideas, lay fears, then you go through everything. As soon as you carry out, it becomes comfortable. She'll be willing to come.
That's so, as we wrap up now, I think we are answering the question. What should we put into consideration? What should we put into consideration before we make that move? I think you've already begun on that in terms of doing our research, saving at least for 1 year. How do we prepare spouses? Because some spouses, women especially, tend to get very comfortable once they've got into these developed countries. Going back home can be truly difficult. What should we have in place? And that's the question I think I'd like to ask all participants as we wrap up. What should we have in store before we can make that move?
Because we've seen scenarios whereby people buy houses. When they put in home, all the money will be taken away by the state. You have to pay for those accommodation. Say you've got a house, they sell your house. You have nothing to live for your family. You can live there as long as you're working, but when you reach 60, you should think twice of that, starting planning to relocate. And we've been talking about the sage. One has said, investment is one of the opportunities you can do. If you are here, you will live a better life. And the other thing I've been telling people, if you're in your 40s, I wouldn't advise to come back to Uganda. Education is very expensive here. Substandard, but very expensive. Medicare is very expensive. And you haven't made any money to live on or to support you when you move abroad. Say, if you're getting in your 50s, start thinking hard. What should I do after 10 years? Where would I be after 10 years? You start thinking way of coming back. Do small businesses. Usually what I usually tell people, go into property, not property, land investment. That's the other thing you do. I've been telling Jaden, if you are coming to Kampala, don't buy things in Kampala, move far away. By the time you come to Kampala, you'll be able to have a car. You can move to any part of Uganda. You have accommodation, you can move anywhere. When it comes to Medicare, if you're not feeling well, you just jump on the plane, come back, you will have the best medical care, and then you go back. But if you've got young families, don't come back to Uganda. It's very difficult and you fail.
All right. Thank you very much, Issa Makumbi. Let me bring in more people as we wrap up tonight's conversation. Haji Katerega, looking forward now, I'd like to bring in actually people who haven't had a say, people who have been quiet there, what they need, what you think they should need. Mastula, you have been there very, very quietly. I think I'd like to hear from you, please. Mastula, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hello, Mastula. Maybe at work. Mariam? Hello, Mariam. Faisal, I just saw your message, but I'm thinking Mariam is also coming. I mean, okay. Faisal, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, Faisal. So thank you very much for joining us, Abu Mariam. How is Kampala?
It's okay, alhamdulillah.
Well, you spoke about your expenses while you arrived there before you realized you had to go downtown and get to negotiate. One thing I thank my mother, Barakallahu Fiha, is the ability to haggle. You know, that's the one thing that my mom taught me. She's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, she would haggle until you run away from the shame, hearing how it would sound so weird that sometimes someone would quote a price and then she would mention a price that would totally be unrelated to what the person has asked for, and you even feel ashamed. And then surprise, surprise, they would end up reaching some kind of agreement. I've seen the ability to haggle, to negotiate, and that makes a huge difference. It can be really the difference between being in Kampala or leaving, to go back. How did you negotiate your way into settling there?
Well, yeah, you learn the hard way. You can think. The thing is, what you have to remember is the fact. I don't know if you've done a bit of economics, you can really understand why things are a bit much more expensive. The Western countries that we tend to live in get better deals when they're buying things from China, Bangladesh, and things like that. So bringing them in to the UK, they're able to give you better prices. Whereas when you think about it, the same item that that's in Uganda is going to be a bit much more expensive. We are landlocked. It's going through, imagine it come from wherever it's come from, how many countries and this and that. And then obviously you have to think of regulation. So you tend to accept where you are and know that you have to adjust and accept the reality of what you're living in. So I think that's one of the things that you tend to do. Then you realize that when this person is selling you something in the supermarket, really, in the UK, going to the supermarket is normal, it's part of life. Whereas in Uganda, going to a supermarket could be a luxury because you can easily just find the same products from a wholesale shop that probably will even sell you something of a better quality. But because you just want, to pack up your car, go into the supermarket, stroll on that trolley and this and that, the convenience of having, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost you, especially if you have plans I don't know. My plans are very big. and then you realize that actually in Uganda, there's a lot that you can do. You just have to get your head down. You have to be able to struggle. I'll give you an example. If you're to start a business, I'll give you an example. When you do business in the UK, you'll find that these Asians, they walk around with flyers and drop flyers on your doorstep, and they're pestering you to order that burger, that new restaurant that's opened up. If you come to Uganda and open a new business, you have to be that Asian man in the UK that you're going to have to walk. You have to give out those flyers. You have to be part of the system. Do not think that you're above anyone. The moment you think that, bagenda kukuba ku mutwe, bakutekemu oluseke, banywe, so, and the other thing is try to get in touch with other people who have come before you. Understand their stories, try to learn from their mistakes, because there's no point of you making the same mistake if someone has made it and they can really save you from it. So, and we're living in a global world, really, Sheikh Kayira. I'll give you an example. We have this program, we have Sheikh Sekade's program, we have so many programs that are actually helping. And the other thing is I'd like to say is, I don't know, the Haji that mentioned that Uganda is very, I don't know, the bodyguards and this and that. I've got quite a few very, very rich friends. When I say very rich, these are people who are worth millions of dollars. And they'll pass by and you'll never know that they even have that amount of money. They're living a normal life. And, it's up to you to accept. Just because in the UK, they've managed to make it. And the other thing you realize is when you're Uganda, realizing that omuntu ina sente. Because tebaina kibamuwa. Asasulira eddwaliro, asasulira gwe mmoloka ogijjayo 2023 n'ogijjayo n'obakugamba ojja kusasula pawundi 1,200 omwezi. Ono ye alina okunoonya million 3 n'agigula n'agiteeka wani. So really, you need to detach yourself. And the other thing, most important, Sheikh Kayira, is dua. You have to make a lot to God. Yes, you have to pray to God. And you have to be very patient and understand that every new system is going to shock you. Just like when, in Islam, they say when you die, your first time in the grave is going to be a shock. Whether you're going to be from the people who are going to be in paradise, whatever, that moment where you're just in a new environment and you wake up and you're seeing things are just different, it's exactly the same thing. Things are going to shock you. You're going to want to do something so small to get a signature and someone is going to ask for money. You're going to, I'll give you an example, Sheikh Kayira. I went to get my Nanga move. And this lady took me through hoops and loops until she realized, when I spoke to her in the Western language, she was like, hey, she signed. And I realized, so that this also...
Had you looked so local that, that she thought you were...
She asked for a lot of money, and then I realized she could speak Rutoro. So I spoke to her in Rutoro, and she's like, hey, from where are you? And this and that. And she's like, that's why my mother's be like this, that. And she signed for me.
Yes.
Without even giving her a penny. And
that's what Haji Katerega was calling the social capital now, because if you didn't know the language, you can see now an ordinary person would have struggled in your place.
But that's the thing. You have to accept that that's the environment you're in. You're not in the environment where things are straight. Anywhere you go, I know people who have no friends who have moved to Saudi and they've struggled. They've felt to, and you tell them, guys, these Arabs they don't think the same way, the way you think, the way the Western world thinks. You just have to adjust and understand that, I moved from London to Bolton, things weren't the same. The way people in the North behave is not the same way the people in the South behave. You just have to kind of really be ready. If you're not ready for change or you're not ready to adjust, then, you just have to stick in your ways. But at the end of the day, if you want to really progress in life and, achieve different heights, you have to be ready to take the risks. If it fails, alhamdulillah, that was the qadar of Allah. But at least you can't say you never tried. That's my few cents, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Faisal. Barakallahu fikum. Amina Amba, your hand was up. I'll bring you in as we wrap up. We are looking at now the sort of things, what we need, the must-haves as you plan to do that particular move. Amina, has she disappeared? She was just on here, and I was just trying to get to her.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
alaikum salam. I was trying to look for you there. I couldn't see you. Yes, how are you? How are you? Yes,
yeah,
way
good.
forward.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Yeah, very interesting topic. Sheikh, thank you so much. I have actually learned so much from you, from different speakers, which has really helped me. So this topic has been good. Zonyambia nnyo ekyamafuta kubanga truly that was something which has been costing us so much in Uganda.
Yes.
Yeah. But in terms of just moving there, the only fear we have, obviously, starting over, kubanga kati we've moved here, tuli wano, we've changed in us. Kati obviously, when you move there, obero otandika butansi. But in terms of investment, really, I don't have much knowledge on it, but I know that my husband did go. He also rushed to go to invest, and he was looking at lands, buying properties, and then reselling. But
the properties, yes.
Yeah, he did it. He went. It was outside Kampala in different villages, and he was purchasing these so many acres of land. And then at the end of that day, then the things started becoming political. RDCs being involved, and then they want half of what he's gonna be getting from it. So to me, it was just messy. It was just, I could look at him, when I went back, I looked at him with all these land titles. And I'm looking at them, they were actually upsetting me because I'm like, that would have been
money,
the money we have somewhere.
Had you agreed with him to move? Had you allowed him to move? To go and
I had, because to be honest with you, funny enough, I have been here for some time, but I have never settled because I've always wanted to go, but it's been him and then the kids.
Right.
So now it's the kids holding me back. But whenever I'm back home, I feel like I don't want to come back. I want to stay there.
Yes.
But he wanted to move so much. And I was like, it's fine, but let's take like baby steps. But he just rushed into it and he did that and he regretted it. So from there, I learned that it's better to do some studying, research, like what you said, before we start these investments. Because I've seen that Uganda, I've appreciated that Uganda has got people who are willing to educate us on investing. I've seen one of the guys on Facebook, like basically teaching people, even if you only have 50,000, he will say, you can't do an investment with this. Just come to my class, spend, anyway, his class is like 50,000. I will teach on how to invest, but be
that's already
wise.
the investment money spent.
Exactly. But yeah, so education is really important, I would think. But I don't have much to say, and I've learned so much from this topic today. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's spoken.
Thank you very much. That's very nice and inspiring to hear. Well, a little bit of this is, and I see KKBD, I'll be coming to you shortly. One thing that you really have to do as part of your preparation, Hajat Sir, I'll answer your question. I actually feel like I'm already back in Uganda, because while I'm here, I'm hardly here, to be honest. I'm very, very much in Uganda. And one of the things that has made that really be possible is, one, I put myself really, I lay low like an envelope. Of course, being who I am and being given where I have been, the name, the BBC thing still follows you, and it opens a lot of doors, but it also can complicate things in other instances, because a traffic police officer sees you where they would have made the process much quicker and allowed you to go. Once they see your driving license and it's Kassim Kayira, they just remember this is the journalist. If you take any money from him, he's going to put you all over the news. So they become tough on you. They might give you a receipt for you to go to have to pay in the bank or in the court, simply because you are who you are. So on one hand, while it might be advantageous that you have a name that follows you, I'm no one just in terms of government or whatever, but I'm an ordinary person. One thing I've realized is, once you go to Uganda, take your time, like Faisal was saying, or even Jaden and Haji Samakumbi. Try to be as streetwise as possible. Lie low, try to understand the dynamics of the people. I cannot tell you how many people I've been with who have come from UK. You go to town, you go into a supermarket, to an eating place, and immediately you'll just know who they are. 1 minute, the person is talking like to a security officer, a policeman, and the way he's shouting at him, nonsense, you cannot do anything. You live with the habits that you've had here, and you think you're going to apply them there. So one thing is, you can be so polite, but very emphatic. I never, for example, hand over my driving license to any police officer, traffic police officer or police officer. Never. One, have 2 copies. There are those copies that they do in Nasa Road there, Nkuruma, Nasa Road. You just go get your driver's license, UK driver's license. They'll make a duplicate, keep that duplicate. In case anyone, an officer, insists on taking, give them that duplicate. You have your original. Sometimes when someone gets hold of it, handing it back might be difficult. You might be in a hurry wanting to leave. So rule number 1, have duplicates of everything. So driver's license on Dangamuntu, have that. 2, be polite, but be emphatic. You can be polite, but in your politeness, your politesse does not mean you're going to look stupid. You will be emphatic and you can stick on things. 3, try to be involved as much as possible. We go here, we have worked in warehouses, we've cleaned, like houses or whatever. Once you go back home, yes, you are the boss, you've suffered for your money, but having that I alone inside there can be the difference between, what has been happening to you and what the difference you can make. Recently, I was at the farm. I've been getting my maize. We take it to the milling machine. These guys were telling me they mill for 500 shillings per kilogram. I got my maize, went straight to the mill, negotiated. I got every kilo being milled at 250 from 300, which is the official price, but I was paying 500, which means Baba Deba Nkuba Nusu Bibidi per kilo. While that might seem like just a coin which is small, cumulatively it becomes a lot of money. You have 1,000, you have 1 ton to mill, just multiply 200 shillings by 1,000 kilograms, and then you'll understand how much money you are losing. I cut out that very aspect the moment I just managed to do that. It does not mean you're going to go there every day, but this one going has already opened up an insight. Get contacts. Speak to people in ways that sort of allow you, even in situations where you have money, allow yourself probably sometimes not to pay straight away. Pretend to negotiate in you are buying time, but in so buying time, you're showing you are just an ordinary person. But the money is there, you are just buying time on this aspect to make sure, to see at the moment when you don't have money, would they still give you? You are allowing yourself to negotiate your way into the system. Find, move into some of the, well, there are some places that might sound so dangerous, but we grew up in these, not so much has changed. So do not pretend to be like this miracle now that has happened once you went abroad. Like Haji Katerega was saying, he has the fears about, like standing out, and therefore when you stand out, it means then, you might be a target. Of course, do not overexpose yourself, but you can lie low, again, like an envelope, like I said, where you manage to go. You go to a window, you go inside there in the wholesale shops, you'll buy beans at 2,500 when in the shops they're at 4,000, because you've taken the trouble to just go where the business is happening. With all these pickups, you're sort of picking up clues and building up a picture. In terms of investments, there are investments. If you think you're not yet ready to go back home, you've bought your land. The biggest risk in Uganda now is having land that has nothing on it. You buy land and you leave it empty. The likelihood of someone coming and claiming it or wanting to steal it is very high. You haven't decided what you want to do with your land. It costs 2.3 million at the moment, between 2.3 and 2.5 million, to have an acre of eucalyptus planted for you by a company. They come, they plant, they look after it for 6 months for 2.3 to 2.5 million. In an acre, you can have 450 trees. That is the standard. Right now, the optimal utilization that they are doing is 1,100 trees that they will pack into that 1 acre. So instead of 450, you've got 1,100. You would have to wait for between 5 and 8 years to start getting money from your eucalyptus. But once they mushroom the 1 acre with 1,100 trees, within 2 years, you can start reaping your money. How? Those ones now come and they start chopping from these extra trees. So at the end of it, you remain with your 450 trees, which are maturing nicely, but you're already earning money within 2 years instead of having to wait 5 to 8 years. These are all ideas that might seem, so far-fetched, and yet they are very practical. You are still here, your land is, preparing. Within those 5 years, I have a neighbor, Dr. Sengindo. I'm sure many of you know him. He was the rector at the Islamic University in Uganda. He's now, I think, the Deputy Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Conference in Jeddah. He went and planted pine trees, about 10 acres, and was saying, Sheikh, Dr. Batugamba, pine trees take 25 years to mature. While we were asking that, hardly 3 years ago, 4 years ago, Dr. Sengendo's trees were already ready. He chopped these 10 acres. Company came and just paid. They looked at it. They looked at 10 acres. They paid money. He built 2 houses non-stop, like residential homes for his 2 wives, non-stop, up to the point of roofing. Then the finishing just followed later on, but non-stop, from just the mere sale of pine trees, which he planted while we were seeing and were thinking it would take forever. So some of these things, I don't want it to sound like it's magic. People have done it and therefore it's doable. So look for a particular area, a niche area that you think you can invest in. Go into that. If you've had your land, you have 50 by 100, don't ignore it. If you can't build straight away, have that thing that is holding the land in the meantime while you are doing. About returning home, I wouldn't advise someone to just wake up one day, pack up your bags. There are times when we become so emotional. No matter homesickness, you wake up, you pack up your bags, no stuka you leave. You might just go and regret your decision. Make a sort of a progressive journey back home. Start slowly, like start moving those steps. Put the stuff that you think you can fall back onto, and then progressively build up towards the end of the program. So the idea is, at least you should have that progressive plan that allows you to be able to do that. I haven't seen what KKBD has to say. He's a newbie into the program. I think I'll just bring him in, and he will be the last person, I think, to speak, and I'll read through your messages as we call it a night, in what I think was a very, very beautiful conversation coming from you. If you've just joined us, or even those who have been with us, the program is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, and we are live on 75W Radio, live on Ummah Connected, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. KKBD, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In fact, this is my first time. I just bumped into you.
Nice to have you. We always love the first timers as well.
Yeah, I have been following you on Facebook, and I sometimes comment on what you write. I don't know where to start, but probably I should start from where you have just ended about the issue of planting trees and what. In Uganda, there is no formula of making business now. It's just gambling.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just about gambling, because I know people who have planted those trees, even when they are within Uganda and they are stolen, they get nothing out of them. It is even more difficult if you are in Europe, because the first thing I've seen in Uganda, if you are to go there, just do not trust anyone. You may try
do not trust anyone.
Do not trust anyone, including your own family members. I have seen people planting these eucalyptus tree, and then they wake up one day, the whole shamba is gone.
Gone as in catching fire or stolen?
Not catching fire, being stolen. They are stolen. People steal it, and it becomes very difficult if you are in Europe or anywhere outside Uganda and you plant them, because in Uganda anything can be stolen now, and aggressively sometimes, because there are a lot of, most especially if you have been outside of Uganda and you have suffered for 5, 3, 4, 6 years in Europe, you have the capacity to manage life in Uganda. The only problem, we no longer have rule of law in Uganda. There is a lot of injustice in Uganda. Taxation injustice is the most fundamental thing in Uganda. If you just bump in these people when you want to do business there. Let me tell you, I had an opportunity to export coffee. I got a Chinese man and his wife, they deal in coffee in Europe. They have coffee shops in Europe and in China. They told me, if you can just help us and bring us processed 10 bags every month, you are going to be rich. I approached my friend who works in Egypt Airlines. I told him, my friend, what can I do? He said, my friend, it is very difficult, because these people, first, they will not give you, you are not one of them. They will not give you an export license. And if you want to export and you have a market, they will tell you to use their certificates. And if you make a mistake of using their certificates, they will either not pay you, or they will pay you the first time and then they take away your market. If you are lucky. If you are not lucky, you may even be silenced for good. This is our Uganda. And one time I went back to Uganda. I went in a plane where many people were there. I had a flat screen TV. Long time ago, before this flat screen TV, almost 20 years ago. And when I arrived there, they thought it was a computer. By then, computers were not taxed. And many of the people I went with, because they were connected, this thing when I talk about connected, they had a lot of things. But me, because I was a poor man from somewhere in eastern Uganda, when they discovered I had this TV and some clothes, and I was going back for the first time after a year, in 2002 or 2003. And they told me, you have to pay a lot of taxes. And the taxes they charged me, everyone I came with, they picked them on the runway by the car, they never paid them tax. They had more goods and services more than me. This thing has pained me for the last 20 years. And then they caught my things, they put them in some professor's warehouse. And they told me every day you don't pick them. The money will increase, the money will increase. Even when I tried to argue, but they told us if you were a student outside of Uganda and you come back for the first time after a year, you do not have to pay tax because you are somebody who is coming back to your country with your luggage. What am I trying to say? We can do business, all of us who are outside Uganda. The problem is there is a lot of injustice in everything you do before even you come to corruption. Corruption is very tough. Somebody talked about the ID there. I wanted to renew the ID for my son, and then they told me somebody who could not even speak good local Ugandan language. He was telling me I was trying to pass through a window to get for my son a passport. And then they wanted me to pay 1 million shillings to drag. I told them, my friend, why? Why should I do this? So I thank you very much for the topic, but what is making things difficult for us is injustice in our country, most especially in the taxation. You can't do business with some people who are not paying tax when you are paying tax. I know people have started business and they fail because somebody will sell something you are supposed to sell for 10,000, you will sell it 5,000. And then automatically you have to fail. That's why in Uganda they said we open a lot of businesses and enterprises, but they don't celebrate their first year.
They fail a lot as well, yes.
Because competition is very unfair. Assalamu alaikum.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated, KK, and being the first time coming onto the conversation as well. That was quite a highlight. It's quite disheartening when you hear these stories about people trying to make lives and then you have to be someone. I think I must be probably living in a totally different world or being too optimistic or maybe just lucky. But I notice there are certain businesses actually, so probably the business line also matters very much. You need to understand the business line. There are particular businesses where there is too much competition. Businesses like coffee now, where everyone wants to take. Someone was talking about going on to the lakes and rivers to fish. That is also now being controlled by the Marines. Subhanallah, it's just a bit, disheartening. And yet, surprisingly, one of the places that I've found that has a lot of money is Africa. Wallahi, there is just too much money to make, money that you cannot believe that once you manage to break through, you can actually stand and you don't have to be political. You can still survive not being political and still got to be there. Well, it's a long time. We've gone 25 minutes into 10 o'clock. I thank you very much for, very good contributions tonight. Before I let you go, few of the messages here. Rashida says, Talamuza, they know we are big spenders. I've seen that. I see them showing off. They comes into a hotel. It's like speaking like the Wanyangole, the Bahima now. Person gets Sechizike from the pocket, 50,000. they just say that when I get money from my pocket, the money doesn't go back. So the 50,000 it can't go back into their pockets. Isa Makumbi says, moving here, just acquaintance with the local police officer and knowing them will make life easier. I've seen that also happen, helping a lot. Many times, even when I went to do my journalism, which is not the easiest of things to do there, you would hear so many protests where demonstrations, for example, with the opposition, where people would get beaten up. I would just be there and I would just receive a phone call saying, Kayira, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. Are you there? He said, yes. Can you move away? And I would move away, only to hear 10 minutes or 15 minutes later that people have been beaten up. I never had the misfortune of, getting beaten up at all during my 3.5 years of difficult time, actually, because that was building up into the elections, from the elections of 2016 and then the elections of 2021. And somehow you manage. Mostly foreigners are the lucky ones that can dig into those resources and get rich. Local people have minimal chances. Yeah, but again, that means as well, there are times when I think we don't explore a lot. We rush so quickly. We rush so quickly. And Amina is reminding me that they called me one in 1,000. Well, that was Haji Katerega, to which I think Isa Makumbi didn't agree. Jaden says that is correct. A person kneeling cannot compete with another who is standing. Bad experiences for those who have had them, but I'm sure we can make amends. Make sure you get an export license. You do not need to belong anywhere. I promise you, my sister who follows me went, and within a day, we had managed to get an export license. No connections whatsoever, straightforward thing. So again, sometimes it's about approach. Is coming to someone, you see someone very first time and they don't like you, and you can't blame them. It's just human nature. There is not much you can do about that. May God forbid. But it's about continuing to do. But ultimately, the secret is just be grounded, understand the dynamics on the ground. Tomorrow, normally, on Ummah Connected, we have Sheikh Suleiman Kata. I'm sure you've heard that his situation is very, very alarming. He's been taken to hospital. He's been moved from Mitiana to Chibuli Hospital with a suspected heart attack. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him shifa, because it means then we cannot have him tomorrow, Wednesday, as is normally the case. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him his mercy and forgiveness and help him through what must be a very difficult time at the moment. Tomorrow, also at 7 o'clock, Baker Change will be coming in and he'll be looking at new immigration. That is on 75W Radio. New immigration rules, how they affect us, what has changed, where does it leave us? Those that want to bring dependents and spouses, international students, skilled workers, etc. You know, that is all changing starting next year. And then, of course, the likelihood of being taken to Rwanda. But that is not for any Ugandan, any Congolese, any Tanzanian, any country that neighbors Rwanda. You are free and safe from being taken to Rwanda. That is out as an asylum seeker. The program is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira. 10:30 o'clock. I thank you very much. We've been live on 75W Radio, live on Ummah Connected, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. Remember, if you've missed this program or just joining us like Ida K was just returning, you can catch up with whatever you have missed. Just go to facebook.com/75W Radio and you'll see Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira, or just go to YouTube and look for Ummah Connected, or just directly type in Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira and you'll be able to catch up with any of the programs that you have missed. Hope to see you next week, inshallah. I had a terrible headache. I wasn't sure we'd be running with the program, but alhamdulillah, it's gone all very well. But also to wish my lovely wife, Ajat Naima Kayira, a very big, happy birthday, because she's just getting closer to where I am now in terms of age. So I'll go on and celebrate quietly with a salah after this. Thank you very much. I love you all. Hope to see you again next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.